is a strange cruelty that exists nowhere else in human experience. It is the cruelty of turning against yourself. A stranger can insult you. An enemy can betray you. A society can reject you. But none of them possess the power of the voice that lives inside your own mind. A voice that follows you everywhere. A voice that knows every weakness, every mistake, every insecurity, every moment of shame. A voice that can transform ordinary failures into evidence of worthlessness. A voice that can look directly at a human being who is trying their best to survive and whisper, "You are not enough." Throughout history, philosophers have attempted to understand suffering. They have studied war, injustice, mortality, loneliness, and despair. Yet some of the deepest suffering emerges not from the world around us, but from the relationship we have with ourselves. Why do some people become their own worst enemy? Why does the mind sometimes develop an almost obsessive need to condemn itself? Why do people who are loved feel unlovable? Why do successful people feel like frauds? Why do intelligent people become prisoners of self-contempt? And perhaps, most importantly, can self-hatred ever be escaped? Tonight, we explore one of the darkest corners of human psychology and philosophy. Not merely self-doubt, not insecurity, but self-hatred, the condition in which a person becomes both victim and executioner. The condition in which consciousness turns inward and begins consuming itself. This is the philosophy of self-hatred. And to understand it, we must begin with a difficult truth. Human beings are the only creatures capable of judging themselves. A lion doesn't question whether it deserves to exist. A bird doesn't lie awake, wondering whether it is a failure. Nature contains pain, but self-condemnation belongs almost entirely to humanity, because humans possess something extraordinary: self-awareness, the ability to observe ourselves as objects, to step outside ourselves mentally, to evaluate our actions, to compare who we are with who we think we should be. This ability is responsible for civilization itself. Without self-awareness, there would be no ethics, no art, no science, no philosophy. But every gift carries a shadow, and self-awareness carries a particularly dangerous one: the ability to become aware of our imperfections. At first, this seems harmless. Recognizing flaws allows growth. Mistakes become lessons. Weakness becomes motivation. But under certain conditions, something changes. The mind stops using criticism as a tool and begins using it as a weapon. The distinction is subtle. Healthy self-criticism says, "I made a mistake." Self-hatred says, "I am the mistake." One attacks behavior. The other attacks identity. One encourages change. The other denies the possibility of redemption. And once this shift occurs, a person enters a psychological labyrinth. Every failure becomes proof. Every rejection becomes confirmation. Every disappointment becomes evidence. The mind develops a theory that explains everything. The theory is simple. The theory is that you are fundamentally defective. And because the theory feels true, everything becomes filtered through it. A compliment is dismissed. A success is minimized. Love becomes suspicious. Praise becomes uncomfortable. Because every positive experience conflicts with the story. And the story must be protected. This is one of the great paradoxes of self-hatred. People often assume self-hatred is simply low self-esteem. But the reality is more complicated. Self-hatred functions almost like a belief system, a philosophy, a worldview, a lens through which reality is interpreted. And like all belief systems, it resists contradiction. In fact, evidence against it can strengthen it. Imagine someone who secretly believes they are worthless. If another person criticizes them, the criticism confirms the belief. But if another person praises them, the praise may also confirm the belief. Because now they think, if they really knew me, they wouldn't say that. The belief survives both outcomes. This is why self-hatred can become so persistent. It creates a closed system, a prison without walls, a prison constructed entirely from interpretation. The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard described despair as a sickness of the self, not a sickness of the body, not even a sickness of the world, but a sickness rooted in one's relationship with oneself. According to Kierkegaard, one of the deepest forms of despair occurs when a person cannot accept who they are. They become trapped between reality and idealization, between existence and expectation. They wage war against their own nature, and in doing so, they divide themselves. Part of them becomes the judge, part becomes the accused, part becomes the prosecutor, part becomes the prisoner. The result is internal civil war, a conflict that never truly ends, because both sides occupy the same mind. And perhaps this is what makes self-hatred uniquely painful. There's no escape from yourself. You can leave a toxic environment. You can end a destructive relationship. You can move to another city, another country, another continent, but you cannot outrun your own consciousness. You carry it with you, everywhere. Many people first encounter self-hatred through failure. A failed exam, a failed relationship, a failed dream. At first, the disappointment is specific, but over time, the mind begins generalizing. One failure becomes evidence of permanent inadequacy. Psychologists call this overgeneralization. Philosophers might call it a distortion of meaning. Either way, the result is devastating, because the individual no longer sees isolated events. They see identity. Failure is no longer something that happened. Failure becomes what they are, and once identity becomes contaminated, everything becomes contaminated. The future feels hopeless, the present feels unbearable, the past becomes a collection of evidence. The entire timeline of life is rewritten, not as a story of growth, but as a story of deficiency. Yet self-hatred rarely emerges from logic alone. Its roots often extend much deeper, into childhood, into relationships, into experiences of humiliation, into moments when acceptance seemed conditional. A child learns about themselves largely through reflection, not reflection in a mirror, reflection through other people, the expressions of parents, teachers, friends, authority figures. These become psychological mirrors. And sometimes, those mirrors communicate a terrible message. You're only worthy when you succeed. You're only lovable when you perform. You're only acceptable when you meet expectations. Under such conditions, the child learns a dangerous lesson. Love must be earned. Worth must be proven. Existence itself is not enough. Years later, the child becomes an adult, but the lesson remains. Now every achievement feels temporary. Every success feels fragile, because the foundation was never secure. The individual does not merely fear failure. They fear what failure means. Rejection, abandonment, unworthiness. The ancient philosopher Epictetus argued that human beings are disturbed not by events themselves, but by the meanings they assign to them. A breakup is painful, but the interpretation may be worse. The event says, the relationship ended. Self-hatred says, it ended because you're fundamentally unlovable. The event says, you failed. Self-hatred says, you are a failure. The event says, you made a mistake. Self-hatred says, you deserve punishment. Notice the pattern. The facts remain relatively small. The interpretation becomes enormous. And over time, these interpretations create an entire philosophical framework. A worldview built upon condemnation. A worldview in which every road leads back to guilt. Every mirror reflects inadequacy. Every silence sounds like judgment. The tragedy is that many people living within this framework do not realize it is a framework at all. They believe it is reality. They mistake interpretation for truth. And because they mistake it for truth, they defend it, even when it hurts them, even when it destroys them, even when it prevents them from experiencing love. For if they abandon the belief, they would face a frightening possibility that perhaps they were never as worthless as they imagined. And that possibility can be surprisingly difficult to accept, because after years of self-hatred, suffering becomes familiar, pain becomes predictable, condemnation becomes comfortable, the prison becomes home. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once warned that when we gaze too long into darkness, the darkness begins to gaze back into us. Self-hatred represents one of the most intimate forms of this encounter. The darkness is not outside, it is within. And yet the story does not end there, because the same self-awareness that creates self-hatred may also provide a path beyond it. The same consciousness, capable of condemnation, is capable of understanding. The same mind capable of cruelty is capable of compassion. But before we can understand how self-hatred is overcome, we must first understand how it grows, how it feeds itself, how it survives, how it transforms from a passing emotion into an entire philosophy of existence. And that journey begins in the shadows of shame. If self-hatred has a birthplace, it is often found in one emotion: shame, not guilt, shame. Most people use these words interchangeably, but philosophically and psychologically, they are profoundly different. Guilt says, I did something bad. Shame says, I am bad. Guilt focuses on actions. Shame focuses on identity. One can inspire correction. The other inspires concealment. A guilty person believes they can change. A shamed person believes they should disappear. This distinction matters because self-hatred rarely grows from guilt alone. It grows from shame, the feeling that there is something fundamentally wrong with who you are. Not what you did, not what happened, who you are. And once shame enters the structure of identity, it begins rewriting reality. The person no longer experiences individual moments of embarrassment. Instead, they become embarrassed by their own existence. They begin hiding parts of themselves, then larger parts, then eventually, their authentic self entirely. What remains is performance, masks, roles, characters. The individual learns to become whatever is most acceptable, whatever is least likely to be rejected, whatever earns approval. Yet no amount of approval solves the problem. Because approval is being given to the mask, not the self, and deep down, they know it. This creates one of the cruelest cycles in human psychology. The more acceptance they receive, the lonelier they become, because the acceptance never reaches the place that hurts. The real self remains hidden, untouched, unknown, still convinced it would be rejected if ever seen. This is where self-hatred becomes existential. It is no longer merely emotional. It becomes philosophical. The individual develops beliefs about existence itself. Beliefs such as, I am inherently flawed. I am less worthy than others. I do not deserve happiness. I am fundamentally broken. Notice how absolute these statements are. there is no room for growth, no room for nuance, no room for redemption, only identity, permanent, fixed, condemned. And yet these beliefs often survive with astonishing strength. Why? Because they provide certainty. Human beings fear uncertainty. Even painful certainty can feel safer than hopeful uncertainty. A person may cling to self-hatred because it answers questions. Why did the relationship fail? Because I am unlovable? Why was I rejected? Because I am inadequate. Why am I suffering? Because I deserve it. The explanations are brutal, but they are simple. And simplicity is seductive. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche understood this dynamic better than most. Nietzsche spent much of his life examining humanity's relationship with suffering. He noticed something strange. Human beings do not merely endure suffering, they seek meaning within it. In fact, suffering without meaning often feels unbearable, but suffering with meaning can be tolerated, even embraced. Self-hatred offers meaning, a terrible meaning, but meaning nonetheless. It explains disappointment, failure, loneliness, loss. The person concludes, "My suffering makes sense because I am the problem." This conclusion is devastating, but it is psychologically satisfying because it transforms chaos into order, pain into explanation, randomness into certainty. And once a belief performs that function, it becomes difficult to abandon. Nietzsche warned that people often prefer comforting illusions over frightening truths. The frightening truth is that life is complicated. The comforting illusion is that everything is your fault. Because if everything is your fault, then at least it makes sense. At least there is a reason. At least the universe feels predictable. But reality is rarely so simple. Relationships fail for countless reasons. People reject one another for countless reasons. Life contains randomness, tragedy, accidents, misunderstandings, bad timing, complexity. Self-hatred erases this complexity. It turns every mystery into a verdict. And every verdict says the same thing: guilty. Yet perhaps no thinker explored the hidden dimensions of self-hatred more deeply than Carl Jung. Jung believed that every human being possesses a shadow. Not a literal shadow, a psychological one. The shadow contains everything we reject about ourselves. Traits we dislike, impulses we fear, weaknesses we deny, needs we suppress. The shadow is not necessarily evil, it is simply rejected. And whatever is rejected does not disappear, it retreats into darkness. There it waits, influencing behavior from beneath consciousness. Many people imagine self-hatred as hatred directed inward. Jung would argue something more complex. Often self-hatred is actually fear of the shadow, fear of seeing what exists within us, fear of acknowledging imperfections, fear of accepting our humanity. The more we reject these parts of ourselves, the stronger they become, like prisoners pounding on a locked door. Eventually, the rejected parts begin demanding attention through anxiety, through depression, through self-sabotage, through destructive relationships, through endless inner conflict. The individual believes they are fighting darkness, but in reality, they are fighting themselves. Jung famously wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." This insight strikes at the heart of self-hatred. Healing does not begin with perfection. It begins with confrontation. Not confrontation with the enemies. Confrontation with ourselves, with the parts we hide, the parts we deny, the parts we fear. Because the more fiercely we reject them, the more power they gain. Imagine carrying a heavy box your entire life. You are told never to open it, never to look inside, never to acknowledge its existence. So, you carry it, year after year, decade after decade. The burden grows heavier, your back aches, your hands bleed, your strength fades, yet you remain convinced that opening the box would be worse. For many people, self-hatred functions exactly like this. The box contains shame, regret, fear, grief, human imperfection, and because they refuse to examine it, they remain enslaved by it. Existentialist philosophers approach the problem from another angle. Thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre believed that human beings are condemned to freedom, not freedom in the political sense, freedom in the existential sense, the freedom to choose, the freedom to define ourselves, the freedom to create meaning. This freedom sounds beautiful, but Sartre saw something terrifying within it: responsibility. If we are free to define ourselves, then we can no longer hide behind excuses forever. We must confront the reality that identity is not fixed, and this is precisely what self-hatred resists. Self-hatred insists that identity is permanent, that who you are today is who you will always be, that your failures define you, that your mistakes imprison you. Existentialism rejects this completely. For Sartre, a person is not their past. They are their ongoing choices, their ongoing actions, their ongoing becoming. This idea can feel liberating, but it can also feel frightening because it removes certainty, the certainty of condemnation, the certainty of victimhood, the certainty of self-definition. Existential freedom forces a difficult question. What if you are not who you think you are? What if the story is wrong? What if the verdict was never final? What if the prison door was never locked? Many people spend years avoiding these questions because self-hatred, despite its pain, offers something valuable: identity. It tells you exactly who you are, even if that identity is negative. And human beings crave identity. We crave certainty. We crave narrative. We crave explanation. The philosopher Albert Camus observed that human beings constantly search for meaning in an indifferent universe. Self-hatred provides a ready-made narrative, a painful narrative, but a narrative nonetheless. And abandoning it can feel like stepping into emptiness. For if you are not worthless, then who are you? If you are not broken, then who are you? If your suffering is not proof of inadequacy, then what does it mean? These questions can feel destabilizing because healing is not merely the removal of pain. It is the reconstruction of identity, the collapse of an old philosophy, and the birth of a new one. A philosophy not built on condemnation, but understanding, not built on punishment, but truth. Yet before that transformation can occur, we must examine one final secret. One of the darkest secrets of self-hatred: the hidden rewards. Because despite its suffering, self-hatred often gives people something they are afraid to lose. And until those rewards are understood, freedom remains impossible.